I am Jason Belzer here at the 2017 NCAA Convention with Athletic Director Yu. And joining me today on my right is Jay Jacobs, Athletic Director at Auburn University. And to my left, Bubba Cunningham, the Athletic Director at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So we are going to discuss organizational culture and identifying some of the unique aspects of management and leadership that are necessary to run what are arguably two of the largest college athletics operations in the sport. Two very storied programs, each with unique histories, football, basketball, and trying to do well in the other sport, so to speak. How do you, in a very general sense, how do you preserve the history and the culture of your organization while also making sure that you are, number one, paving your own identity, and two, making sure that your program is well positioned to be successful in the future? There's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of nostalgia, I'm sure, amongst the people that are within your athletic communities, your alumni, your boosters, and the general university community. How are you kind of putting your own stamp on the program, but also how are you systematically making sure that the program is going to be ready to be successful for the next decade and beyond?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great question. I mean, because culture is everything when you start thinking about universities. I mean, we're 220 years old as a university. The athletic department, not quite that old, but and it's a little bit different. You know, I didn't go to the University of North Carolina. Jay went to Auburn, played at Auburn, and so he learned the culture at 18 years old and beyond. I came new to a new environment, and what I tried to do when I first got there was to listen a lot. I met individually with every single member of the department that wanted to meet, and I asked every single person to say, give me the three best things that we do, and give me three things where we can get better. And I think through that period of time, which probably took me about 6 months, I began to learn what the culture was. You know, I knew about North Carolina. I had been to North Carolina. I knew about Coach Smith. But you know, that is he's probably the most recognizable figure in the history of our school. Coach Williams is hot on his tail, and Anson Dorrance and Sylvia Hatchell and some other great coaches. But you know, the mantra that we had at Carolina, and we still do, is play hard, play smart, and play together. And I think when you think about those attributes and you apply those to higher education and what we do, that came through when I asked our staff, what did we do well and where could we get better? And then we ended up kind of developing our words that are now what we use in our department to develop a mission for our department. Ours is very simple. We educate and inspire through athletics. And that takes Coach Smith's words and puts them in today's vernacular about what we do every day. And then how do we connect all of our people with that mission? How do we continue to provide a great education for those kids that come? And how is that inspirational? It's inspirational to the youth of the country. It's inspirational to alumni. It's inspirational to us as staff members. You think about the people that look up to Michael Jordan or Mia Hamm or Bo Jackson or any of the other people that have come before us. I mean, to me, that's what you want to do, is preserve those great qualities and then try to make them relevant to today's kids.
Yeah, that's and Bubba, you know, with your different levels of experience, it's vast and wide. Mine is really vast, but at one place. I've been there. I played football there at Auburn a long time ago, and I grew up an Auburn fan and an Auburn man, and I've been there. But the thing that I've learned is that, or I'm still learning, is that it all starts with culture. And at Auburn, we're known as the Auburn family. In today's society, trying to keep those family-type values is more and more difficult. And so what we basically do is we try to create an environment for our staff that is the best place in college athletics to work. And we tell our student athletes it's going to be the best university for the best athletes in the nation. And the way two foundational absolutes that we developed, I actually did it before I was athletic director, is number one is always tell the truth, and the other is to treat people the way you like to be treated. And there's a lot of different strategies and tactics you can do for developing culture, but what we want to do is hang on those two things. You know, just always tell the truth and treat people the way you like to be treated, but at the same time, protect our culture of the family. If you do those things, I believe it is a lot like family, even though sometimes they're family feuds, and we have those as well. But we want a culture of openness, that people can say what they like or don't like. Similar to what Bubba was saying is that I ask my people often, I ask them 3 questions. 2 of the same ones that Bubba mentioned is, what do we need to do more of? What do we need to quit doing? And what is it we need to be doing? And it's interesting to get those answers. Just this past Wednesday, at our department-wide meeting, I asked our department, about 200 people, I said, what are we here for? And everybody had different answers. We're here for academic success. We're here for graduating our student athletes. We're here to have great fan experience. We're here to win championships. And we are here for all those things. But it all starts with the culture, because just like in my family or your family, if you don't have a spirit of openness and trust, you don't have culture. And so it's important for me that we hang our hat on just telling the truth every day. No little lies. No little thing that if somebody says, can you go to lunch, you make up an excuse. Nothing. Don't let anything, no chinks in the armor. And then try to treat people the way you like to be treated. Now, I've learned that telling the truth, that's pretty objective. That treating people the way you want to be treated, that can be a little dicey, because some people want to know what time it is, just tell me the time. And some people want to tell you how to build the clock. And so, but if you have a pure heart about it, you can accomplish those things. So, and I really believe, even though it's been said many times, I really believe it starts at the top. And so I have to demonstrate those things at the highest level. And my executive staff and my coaches have to implement those things and demonstrate those things at the highest level. But it also has to be part of their character, who they are. And so hiring people into our department is more about culture than it is anything else. I had a chance a few years ago, Tim Cook's an Auburn graduate, CEO of Apple, had a chance to go visit with he and his staff a couple of years ago, and he had criteria for hiring people. One was the hangout factor. And so, there are a lot of people that can do different jobs in our department, but really who is it that is like you that you want to hang out with because they have the same values you have? And I think that, along with the things that Bubba said, is part of, Jason, building that culture. And there is no book for it. It's a lot about it, intuitivity and just feel and leadership. And sometimes it means making hard decisions like Bubba and I've had to make. Somebody doesn't fit the culture. They may be winning on the scoreboard, but they don't fit our culture, so they can no longer be a part of our program, which makes it very difficult for athletic directors to explain to fans sometimes. Sometimes you can't explain it, but you have to make a change because it is impacting the entire culture in a negative way.
Do you feel like, particularly on the coaching front, you mentioned hiring the right people, right? Finding the right people and putting them in the right positions. Do they have to be part of the Auburn family? I mean, could you reach across the aisle and maybe hire somebody from Alabama or maybe hire somebody from Duke and say, this is the type of person who grew up in a different place but still embodies the things that we want to do? And are you willing to maybe put yourself out there in a situation like that when other people may say, well, how could you? How could you go outside of our family? Or how do you kind of deal with that when sometimes you shake your head and say, no, this person is qualified, this person makes sense for us?
Well, for me, because this is the only place I've ever been, so I really know the history and the passion of Auburn. So it's really important for me to hire people from outside. Now, that does not mean that I do not hire people that have an Auburn background. It all depends on fit. But I like the idea of having a diverse group of people around me. And when we bring in new employees, one of the first things I tell them is look, we're a traditional place. If you do something one day at Auburn, it becomes a tradition. Okay, you can't really change. But what I encourage them to do is say, look, bring those ideas you've learned under Bubba Cunningham or whomever it may be, bring those to Auburn, bring those up, and let's see if we can't do business better. And you make us better every day. What can you do to make us better every day? So I've gone pretty much the other direction, Jason. I've tried to reach out and hired, and I've been successful doing it, hired people that weren't necessarily the same background as me, because I believe a diverse team makes a better team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the same thing. You want to have a diverse team. You want to have race, gender, ethnicity, thought, everything that goes into making a great team. When you look at the great teams that perform on the court, it's not that you have everybody's the same height, weight, and has the same capabilities. It's about having a variety of talents. And when you have a variety of talents, that's when you see a lot of tremendous success. So I couldn't agree more. And I was fortunate that Carolina felt that way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the job.
Yeah, right.
Very true. So, the great management scientist Jim Collins talks about the necessity of avoiding stagnation within your culture, right? And preserving the core but stimulating progress. How do you assess that culture? How do you say great culture, great history, but it's not the right thing anymore, or we have to move forward, or this is not working for us because the market is changing, the environment is changing, or maybe just it's just not there, or maybe it is. How do you kind of keep yourself in check? And I do think having that outside perspective is important, but I think one of the biggest issues in organizations is when you have people working in the department, sometimes they can't see things from outside, right? I mean, you're sitting there and you have these people and you have certain ways of doing things and systems in place, and you just keep doing them and doing them and doing them, and before it's too late, something comes along and it destroys it. How do you make sure that you're stimulating the progress and making sure that your culture isn't stagnating?
Yeah. Well, I think Jay talked about it. I mean, it's a value-based organization, so you make your decisions based on your values. And we have, you've mentioned the two that you have. We have four. We use four as a RISE as our acronym: responsibility, innovation, service, and excellence. And so if you make all your decisions based on those, and for responsibility, we say do what's right, similar to your tell the truth.
Right.
I is for innovation, find a better way. So there's when you're trying to push the envelope between change and tradition. What is a good thing for us to do? And the example I use with our staff all the time is, the four-corner offense was a terrific offense when Dean Smith invented it and put it in. But when the shot clock came along, it wasn't going to work. Right. And so that's when he created the secondary break. So there's a lot of different things that happen. And the fast break offense that those guys run, that didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago. And he's got a guy down there that created the darn thing. And then our third one is S for service, and that's put others first, very similar to what you had talked about. And then our fourth one is E for excellence. And we try to work hard, play smart, and win together. Trying to bring all of our words together that really symbolize what we do as a department, how we fit in with the rest of the university. And that's the way I think you maintain your tradition, and then you continue to push yourself to get better, because the environment does change. And then the other analogy that we use quite a bit is it's like walking up a down escalator. If you stand still, you're going to be at the bottom. If you continue to walk, you have a chance to either stay even or maybe even get more toward the top.
That's a great analogy. I feel like that some days. And I believe what Jim Collins is saying, right? That is what we try to do every day, because, and probably Jason has a lot to do with, because that's the only place I've ever been, and I grew up and I played ball there. But but we are very rich in tradition, just like North Carolina. And so making those changes to please, I just think about game day, okay? We put in the largest video board in the nation, okay? Some people loved it. Some people thought that wasn't a very good idea, okay? But once we turned it on and got it rolling, everybody's enjoying it. So that wouldn't have been a real traditional thing to do at Auburn, okay? But we did it because, the question that you asked is that the environment is changing and our fans are changing. So how can we gently move us along to continue to stimulate growth but protect our culture? So there's certain things that we're not going to do on game day at Auburn, but there's certain other fun things that we can do because they're family oriented. And so it is a balance, but I'm convinced that you have to continue to do those things, because those 18 to 22-year-olds sitting in my basketball game last night, they want change. They want environment. They still want to protect some of the traditions of Auburn, whatever it may be, rolling the trees, shouting War Eagle, whatever it may be, a family atmosphere that lives by our creed. But at the same time, we were sitting there last night, and right before the second half, we're playing a basketball game, and the music is so loud, my wife looked at me and said, "Can you do anything about that?" I said, "No, look at the students." And so, but the music quickly went off. So that balance of change and innovation, whether it's the ticketing process or whether it's the music in an in-game event, it is delicate. But if you go about it the right way and you're moving with your audience, then it will be successful. And then, and also you have to be willing to take a chance. You have to be willing to do some things that may or may not work. And I've done many of those, many that hadn't worked, and a few that have.
Jay, is there anything more difficult than trying to pick the volume or the music selection from 18 months to 80 years old? There's a lot of variety of interest in that group.
You know what's interesting to me, Bubba, is that when we'll play a song at football, say the first game, okay? Sounded good to me. I'll start getting emails from these older adults saying, "Do you know the lyrics to these words? I mean, the lyrics of this song." I'm thinking, well, how do you know it? so it is.
Google it, right?
Yeah, but I'm sitting there thinking, well, okay, it's a nice beat. To me, I'm worried about the game. But hey, that's the part about North Carolina and Auburn having passionate fans. Everything matters. And that's why it makes it even more difficult to protect the culture and create innovation, as Jim talks about, Collins talks about, but it is difficult. And it is funny. People will probably be amazed at how many comments we get about music and volume. And, and the greatest thing we have going is throwing out T-shirts. And we could take all our marketing dollars and just toss T-shirts in the stands and probably be done with it. But anyway.
Well, what about from an internal organization standpoint? Is there anything that you've stopped doing, or that you've been doing for a while, and you said, and maybe it was when you came in at first and you saw the way that something was operating within the department, maybe the previous leadership was doing it some way, and you said, you know what, there's a better way of doing this, or maybe just doing it differently is going to help stimulate a different perspective or move people in a different direction from your internal constituency?
Well, one thing that we're doing, and we're actually going to do it over the next 3 months, is we're sending some of our senior staff to different campuses. And a couple of years ago, I sent the people that work with us for game day, we sent them to different athletic events, okay, so that they could begin to see how other people do things. So I think that getting a broader perspective, Jason, on different events and different things that are going on, I think that's helpful in that.
Yeah, I agree. We try to get out and get around. We also brought in Disney to help us with the customer service model and tried to actually change the culture and continue to enhance the culture. Professional development, I think, is really important for our staff, and that's another form of it by traveling. So we've really emphasized that, and we've also emphasized the student experience, whatever that is, whether it's the way we present their letter jacket or the way we do our year-end awards banquet for them. We've really invested in the student experience and try to make sure that it is a world-class experience from everything that we do for them. Now that means sometimes you have to do fewer of them because you're trying to make them a little bit better. But we've been very fortunate that the traditions there have been very good, and so we're just trying to build on those traditions of making the students really feel good about the opportunity to be at Carolina.
And go along with that, Bubba, it reminded me of something. We brought Disney in March of 2011, and neither one of us have a problem selling out our primary sports.
Right.
But we knew that we just couldn't sit on our hands and keep doing things. To answer your question more specifically, Jay, we couldn't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. We needed innovation. We needed better customer service because people are paying a lot of money to come and be a part of what we're trying to accomplish during these student athletes' lives. One small example that Bubba reminded me of, Jason, is that, so we used to have beginning of the year, the soccer team and volleyball team and football team usually come in first, okay, cross country. And so they'd go to the equipment room, they'd pick up their stuff. So what we started doing was I have a kickoff every year called the Tiger Tailgate, where every student athlete comes and every member of the athletic department is there for this one meeting. It doesn't last more than 30 minutes. But we work with Under Armour, and now everybody gets their own individual box, and it's delivery of the same exact thing, but it makes everybody feel so much more pride in what they get. So that's not a big culture shift, but it is big in the delivery of something we're already doing. How can we do what we're already doing? How can we do it a little bit better? And I think that's the challenge for us. It's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but what can we take what we're already doing and make it a little bit more special?
And the challenge is it's a new student class every year. That's a new freshman class. You may have been doing it 20, 25, 30 years, but it's the first time. That could be the youngest person in their family. It could be the oldest. It could be their last child, their only child. And you have to make every single one of them feel special.
That's right.
And that becomes a challenge for the staff because you get into a routine and a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And one old joke I've heard and I absolutely love it. How many Auburn's alums does it take to change a light bulb? 10. 1 to change the bulb and 9 to talk about the tradition of how you change the light bulb.
That's right.
So you can apply that to any college in the country because we all get stuck in our own traditions, and no, you can't change that because that's how we do it.
Right.
Sure. So, sticking with Jim Collins here, he discusses this concept of the productively paranoid leader. And what that means is a leader that's consciously always thinking about what may be around the corner. One that is, as he says, zooming in and zooming out and looking at the greater environment of the industry and the environment that his organization is functioning in, and then looking specifically at his organization, at what's going on. How do you assess risk? How do you assess what may be happening within your own departments from a personnel standpoint, whether it's a coach's performance or even an individual ticket taker's performance, to what's happening within your conference, what's happening within the greater college athletics landscape. How are you looking at risk, and what are you doing to mitigate risk, to prepare yourself for the worst, or maybe nothing ever happens, but you're ready no matter what?
Yeah, I personally I think that's why a diverse staff is really helpful. I am not paranoid. I'm optimistic. I believe things are going to be good. I think things are going to always work out for us. But we have people on our staff that have a totally different personality than I do, and they worry about that stuff. And it's just like my wife and I. She worries about everything. I don't worry about anything. And so, but they bring it to you and say, oh yeah, now I understand why we need to worry about that. I understand why we need to worry about that. So we have a pretty significant, risk management area. We have a compliance area. But I also think part of that is anticipation. And if you're prepared, you don't necessarily worry about what's going to happen next because you're prepared for the events that could happen, and you get your staff ready for it, and you're ready for it personally. And then once you have adversity, then you have to deal with it, and you have to put yourself in the position, just like a coach, that at some point you're going to get a punt blocked. At some point you're going to have an interception, and you have to be ready to handle that adversity and work through it. So the idea of proper preparation will allow you to take some adverse conditions and then continue to move forward. It won't stifle you and set you back too far because you're prepared for it.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with Bubba. The phrase that I use is, I want people around me that can see around the curve.
Yeah.
Because neither one of us take the time to smell the roses. We're always looking for the next thing because we're both are optimistic and good things are going to happen. I need people, but I'm also one that's always planning for what is the next thing. So I think learning from others. What are the trends out there now that's going on that could be a risk assessment for us? And we do a risk assessment. What are the things that would damage our department the worst? And you try to put things in place that prohibit that from happening, but you can't legislate morality. People can do bad things. So what I want to be able to do is know that, we took every step we possibly could, and we may have come up short, but it's not because we weren't aware or thinking about it. But the people around us, whether it is the assistant coach on an Olympic sport team or whether it's my COO, I want people that are always thinking about what is around the curve, what is the good and bad about this. And that's why our culture, going back to our culture question, Jason, is so important, that people feel the freedom to speak up and say, wait a minute. And that's the environment that we're trying to create, is so that, because, with those almost 300 employees, they got eyes and ears, and they're on the front line, so they can tell us, where our next misstep could be, or where we can learn from somebody else. So I think all that's very important. The thing about it is we don't know what tomorrow we wake up and hear. I just want to be able to wake up and know that the people that I have in place are trustworthy people of integrity and character, and if something has gone wrong, it is because it was a mistake, not because it was a character flaw.
We have two slogans that we use within our department relative to risk assessment. One is, if you see something, say something, and the other is up and out. If you see something, report it up and out of the department, so that you have cover and you've protected the department, protected the institution.
Yeah.
And so we continue to try to reinforce that as far as risk.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We have the slogan as well. If you see something, say something. And the other thing that we continue to do is at our monthly staff meetings, often I'm repeating, how you can report things anonymously. We have ethics point. We have an ombudsman. We have a Title IX coordinator. We have all the internal auditing on campus. We have all these places that our people can go, because I want it to be a healthy environment. I don't want anybody to think something's going on that shouldn't be going on, and they don't feel like they can report it, because we are such a traditionally rich institution and family atmosphere that some would feel like that they're betraying their friend and coworker. I don't want that kind of environment. I want a healthy environment where people can say exactly what they feel and get an answer to any question they have. So I think that if you see something, say something. I think it's a creates for a healthy environment.
So let's pivot for a moment, and obviously college athletics is unique. Sports in general, but college athletics specifically, managing people and managing coaches, managing individuals. Almost always, there's always at least one, if not more, coaches on the staff that are making more money than you, that are far more visible than you are. And that's a unique dynamic. I mean, most CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, they're probably the only employee or one of the only employees that people know work at that company, Tim Cook. how do you deal with that? I mean, you are responsible for managing an individual who sometimes we can say maybe has more power than you, or maybe can get up and say something, and that can influence your job, which is a rare occurrence. Um, how do you deal with the dynamic? How do you make sure that it's clear that you're the boss and that person has to do their job, or do you let them do what they need to do, but make sure that you're kind of keeping things in check in the background?
Jay runs it like nobody's business. It's my way or the highway. I know that's why he runs it.
Well, it's all about relationships. And to be just candid with you, I never think about the money piece. I've got a great job, make a great living, and, I'm just blessed. So I don't think about me making a fraction of what some other people make, because that is what the market bears.
Sure.
And so that has never been an issue for me as far as managing people. And, I don't really like to say that I'm the boss. I work with people. Sometimes you have to act like a boss. But if I'm hiring the right people and have great relationships with big personality head coaches, and there's a great relationship, you never have to be the boss. The thing that I've learned is that, those guys in those positions are really in a lonely place. And it's a fragile deal, because at some point you may have to fire him or her. But building that relationship with him or her, because oftentimes you're the only person they can talk to and know that it won't go anywhere else. When it comes to your example of, I think what you said, Jason, was that they say something negative about you, or that, to me, that's a character flaw. That's lack of confidence or something else. That's not really a good fit for us. That doesn't mean that we haven't had those or don't have those now, but we want to develop people that are confident in what they do and know there's a team effort and that we're all in this thing together. And I've been around Auburn for a long time, had a lot of different personalities, but I really think it boils down to my relationship with him or her, and also my staff's relationship with him or her and their staff.
Yeah, and part of the culture at Carolina, I think, has been terrific. I mean, Coach Smith really instilled it in all the other coaches, and Coach Williams is right there. And we have a variety. We have 28 different teams. We have 21 head coaches that lead those teams. And we have some highly compensated coaches. We have some coaches that barely make $100,000. So there's a big variety just within our room. But even within that room, we have 6 coaches who are in their coaching Hall of Fame as they're coaching.
Wow.
When I got there, we had 4 coaches that had won national championships. Now we have 9. We've had 5 coaches in the last 5 years win a national championship. So I was intimidated when I went in the room and this is highly successful people, and I had never won a national championship coaching. But what I learned was they all wanted to learn from each other. And we were interviewing Coach Fedora. We had a great management team that went to New York, and we're interviewing these coaches. We had 5 people on our search committee. They had 89 years of experience at North Carolina. I had 6 weeks. So I felt like I knew how to conduct a search. They knew Carolina, and so how could we find the right fit? And so when we were hiring Larry, I said, now, Larry, think about it. You've got all these coaches who won national championships. You've got Coach Williams, and basketball is an iconic brand in this country. Are you going to be okay with that? He said, okay with that. I want to be that guy. I want to learn from him. Well, I immediately knew we had the right guy, because that's exactly a guy that's going to fit in with the rest of our coaches in the culture at Carolina. So it is about working with people and trying to figure out what can we do as administrators, whether it's for a coach or the faculty member or student. We're trying to provide resources so you can be successful. Once you're successful, that becomes fulfilling for all of us and for all of our staff, because that's what we're there for. That's our job, is to provide those resources.
And if we're not on the same team, it is so hard in the SEC and the ACC to be successful. If everybody is not, to use my country term, pulling the rope in the same direction, you'll never be successful. And so there'll be challenges. Somebody wants to do something, and I say, maybe we don't need to do that, or no, you can't do that. But if everybody's working together for the same cause, and everybody has the same culture and character and end result in mind, you have a chance to be successful. Because, I don't know of many successful athletic departments or ADs that have adversarial relationships with their head coaches. It just doesn't work. And so, at our place and obviously at North Carolina, it's a team effort. It's really just like we're doing every day with the basketball team, with the football team, with the baseball team. Everybody's got to work together, and everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. But somebody's going to be the starting pitcher, and somebody's going to be the starting quarterback, and somebody's going to be the starting point guard. But all those other people on the team matter.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, Jay, Bubba, thank you for joining us today. I think that was a very enlightening discussion. Thank you, guys.